we have some challenges, right, with Chester not being here, and
Mm.
we had to create the entire process of how to write around him on the last record. And this record was a little simpler because we had those processes worked out and we knew what worked and what didn't, or at least what we were comfortable with. And that seemed to be a great starting point because we had already experienced it once.
Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in Sean Dowdell of Daze. How are you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for being here. It's a real pleasure. We followed the story for a long time, and obviously Amends was a tremendous album, and now we're on the eve of yet another one. Just out of curiosity, I wasn't sure of the arc of everything, but was the plan always to have like multiple releases?
Well, initially when we started this project, Chester was still alive and we were working on it together. So I think initially it was more, let's do a record and see how it does and then see where it goes. That was the initial intent. Once he passed and we finished the record, about halfway through it, we knew we had another, 10, 11 songs minimum. We actually have, 28 songs left, but we knew we had at least one more record's worth of material, and it really depended on how it was received by his fans and the fans of Daze, and just to see how it did as far as people's interest. And then of course Amends did really well, and so we found ourselves a year after Amends came out, or shortly before that, starting to write in the second record.
Right on. And yeah, Amends was tremendous. As I said before, was ear opening to say the least, to hear Chester again and hear these new songs. And what I think what a lot of people don't realize is, when someone passes away, especially unexpectedly, you don't know if you're going to hear them ever again, or hear new music, or get to experience their vision, right? And so this band was the vision of Chester and the rest of you, and it's a gift. That's how I look at these albums, and I'm sure you also feel pretty grateful to be able to do this.
Very. Gratitude is very present in my life on many levels, but for sure in this project.
Nice. There's so much stuff to unpack for this record, maybe even a little more than the last one to me. I think I got the opportunity to get all the lyrics, which I didn't have the last time. So it was really fun to dive in and listen to the record a few times and listen along with the lyrics and read along. But yeah, the Phoenix, appropriately named for a variety of reasons, the hometown of the band, back with the same production team again. That was another thing I wanted to touch on. S.A. Jones, phenomenal producer, worked on Amends, and obviously made a lot of sense maybe to continue to go back to the well.
Yeah, so Jay Baumgartner was executive producer of the last record. SJ did 5 of the songs with us production-wise. When we started to write this record, she just really understands the band and how we write, and takes an active role in writing, and literally would drive out. We spent a year writing this record with her. She would come out from California and spend a weekend with us several times along that year and have writing sessions. And she just really gets the band and understands the direction, the mood, the intention. She really resonates with Chester's voice. Not that anybody else didn't. We just really feel a connection with her, and she's easy to work with. So that's really why we chose her. She works harder than any producer I've ever worked with, and she really gets the project. So it was great to work with her again.
Phenomenal job. I think one of the things about SA that kind of just runs back to my experience about records that she's worked on is the ears. A lot of producers are knob twisters. Some producers are songwriters, but it's like the value of what do you hear when you hear the material and when you bring to it. I think that's a very rare gift for a producer.
Yeah, she understands songwriting at the core, right? She's a musician and a songwriter herself. I would come up with a drum part, or Kristen would come up with a guitar part, or Mace, and she'd say either that's really good, or what about adding this? What about taking away that? So she had constructive criticism that was coming from not only a songwriter's point of view, but a musician's point of view. So sometimes you have producers that don't play instruments, and that's always a difficult situation because they don't speak the same language as musicians. So she did. She was great to work with. We really enjoyed it.
Right on. It's like an architect that cannot draw.
Yeah.
You have to be able to draw. You have to be able to speak the same language.
Yeah, I've worked with producers that don't play instruments, and they can be fun to work with because they bring a different perspective, but they also have communication barriers, right? If somebody who plays guitar wants a guitar player to play an E instead of an A, they can describe that in a way technically that makes sense. If you don't play guitar, which I don't, I play piano and drums, I have a difficult time trying to work within a scale of notes and describe what I'm hearing that might be different. So it takes me a lot longer to describe to Kristen or Mace to change the note from here to here versus somebody that plays guitar and says, go from here to here. It's very easy. So
right, a map. We all need to read the same map the same way. Maybe that's a good analogy too. So many ways to go with that. And then once again, I think you guys worked at a variety of studios, your own. I know the project was mixed elsewhere, but yeah,
actually we did the entire record at Sunset Sound.
Okay.
And then so we worked in our own studio for writing sessions, but the recording was all done from start to finish at Sunset Sound. And then Lucas D'Angelo mixed it in France.
That's right. Yeah, there's got to be a familiarity aspect there also, come back with the same team, in the easiest, quickest path to getting the record done in a fit fashion.
Yeah, it's a little different when, we have some challenges, right? With Chester not being here. And we had to create the entire process of how to write around him on the last record. And this record was a little simpler because we had those processes worked out and we knew what worked and what didn't, or at least what we were comfortable with. And that seemed to be a great starting point because we had already experienced it once.
Is there ever a period of time between the entire team where you're listening back to something and there isn't a clear path of where to go with it? Is it voted on? Is it listened to? Is it workshopped musically? We're talking before the recording sessions, like in the writing process.
So workshopped is exactly the right term. There's some of these songs like Whole, I think we did 4 or 5 versions of. So yeah, there's a lot of times where we get it completed and we all listen to it. We're like, that's not right. It just doesn't work. Or it's not as good as it could be, I guess is really the best way to describe it. And then we start over. We literally throw the music away and we start over. And Whole took us, I guess, a better part of 3 years working on that, try to figure out, finally get it to where we were happy. But then again, some of the other songs just flow right out of us and work no problem. So every song is a different mountain to climb and it has its own issues. But I think at our age, at this point, we all realize that the mission at hand is to make the songs not only as good as they can be, but to keep the original intention of what we had while Chester was alive and make sure that it would be something he'd be really excited to hear or be proud of. If they don't meet those standards, then we got to start over. So it wasn't anything about egos on this, these writing sessions for these records. We're all able to put our own ego aside and do what's best for the song. A lot of fun.
Right on. Is there any pressure that comes along with that, sort of the weight and the responsibility of carrying this legacy a little bit?
On the first record, I think there was. I had a tremendous weight, several areas. This one, not so much. First one, we were all still grieving. We were trying to figure out how to do this in the first place. We were unsure of where it was going to go, and we were still sad. I mean, the entire record Immense has this sadness, this melancholy feel to it, right? It's emotional roller coaster. While we did this record, it was really different. It felt much more like a celebration of our friend. It felt we had a lot more laughing in the studio, a lot more good times creating this record. So I think the pressure was kind of gone, especially because we took a year to write it and worked out. Literally, we were all just shredding by the time we got into the studio musically. I think it's the best record I've ever played on as far as my drum performance. I think I would say the same thing for Mace and Kristen. And that just comes from working on it for a year instead of trying to figure out a part in the studio and saying that's good enough. Because that's good enough. Sometimes 6 months later, you're like, oh man, I could have done this or that.
Right. You don't want to have there are no give backs once it's out. One thing I do want to point out, and yeah, I agree with you. I think Amends is a little heavier record and this is a little more uplifting and maybe it's just in general because of time. I'm sure you're not over the loss of Chester. I'm not over the loss of Chester as a fan and as a presence to our scene. But yeah, this record's a little more hopeful, if anything, I think, and a little more positive overall. And again, it could just be my own time warping my own ear. But yeah, man, there's a lot of things here. There's a lot of stuff here to sink into and kind of let buoy you. And Amends was so hard. That very first listen, I think that's maybe what it is when that first listen is over and you hear those songs for the first time, it's like, whoa. Like, this is really great. I was not expecting this. So yeah, Amends, I think, had an extra set of heaviness with a side of heavy emotions on top of the music.
Cool. I think audibly, this is a heavier rock album than Amends, but I think emotionally, you're absolutely right. Emotionally, Amends was much heavier, much deeper. Just hit you in the gut kind of feeling. This one, you feel like instead of getting sad, wanting to cry like on Amends, this one you want to raise your fist and scream the anthem songs, and I think that's the really differentiation between the two albums.
Right on. And I want to say also in this fashion, which is when you write with guest artists or guest artists want to perform on this record, this is like a Batman movie. Everybody wants to be on this record. What I like about the tracks is, not just the feature ones, but the other areas of the album. None of it feels forced. It all feels very natural, like the song was written maybe even with that person in mind. Richard came in and just killed it on Believe Me. If it's not going to be a single, it should be. It's a tremendous track, and Richard is, he's incredible.
Thank you. I love that song, Believe Me too. SJ and I wrote the chorus for that, knowing that when we restructured the songs, we had a big void. So we had two songs that had big voids. Once we restructured them, we had Believe Me and we had Starting to Fly. So we had to write choruses, and then we had to get someone to sing those choruses. I sing on Starting to Fly. Richard sings on Believe Me. And man, he came in and just crushed it. It was great to have him involved. And I had not known Richard before this record, so it was a joy to work with him. He was very humble, very excited, and he was an absolute Chester fan, so that was great. And then, of course, working with Dave Navarro on Holding You, that was incredible as well. He came in with no preconceived notions of where it was going to go and wrote with us in the studio. And man, he really shines on that track. I think he just not only plays an amazing guitar solo that makes you remember it as like a secondary vocal melody, which is very tough to do as a guitar player. He added so much to the coloring of that song. And again, just such a humble guy. He loved Chester. I met Dave years ago when him and Chester were playing in a band called Camp Freddy out in LA. And Chester always had an admiration for Dave, and I can see that Dave has an admiration for Chester, and truly was an emotional experience for him to come in and connect with him through music.
Right on. Yeah, people don't realize that Camp Freddy was like the original OG casual supergroup of Hollywood. People don't quite recall that because we're like a bit passed on from that time now. But
I couldn't believe some of those guys that were involved. What a great experience for Chester to have gone and done that. I got to go hang with them at those gigs. So what a group of just stellar musicians, my God. So
right
very cool that he got to that. I'm sad that they didn't get to do anything original.
Yeah, that's true. And also in a sense, it kind of also speaks once again to Chester's immense talent. I think all his projects really start to give you a flavor of his versatility, which you certainly had some of in Linkin Park. But I think this record is probably one of his most versatile albums across the span of the tracks and the different approaches to vocals and things. And, that could be part and parcel of how this record is, but also just speaks to, what he left on the table also for all of us.
Thank you. Look, for me, it's not an either or with Chester. I'm Chester's friend first and foremost, but I'm also his fan. If your friends should be your biggest fans, right? And every time Chester did anything project-wise, I was a big supporter. So very proud of everything he did in Linkin Park. Those guys worked their butts off and deserved every bit of success they had. I was stoked when he got to do Stone Temple Pilots. I was stoked when he did Dead by Sunrise. So everything he got to touch, I was supportive and wanted to see him succeed in it, because that's how you should be as a friend, by the way. He is amazing talent. And everything he did was good. Every single band he did.
Right. It's crazy. I actually also was lucky enough to see him with STP, which was insane. He was so good at that. And those shows were so fun. And he was just so killer. That EP is great. People should go out and check all this stuff out. We have this legacy to support. And I feel grateful to get this music and to get to hear him again. It's really thrilling. I'm sure there's some comfort in there also. As tough as this whole thing has been, it's been a tough time. I'm fond of saying it's been a very tough time in the world for all of us, but sometimes with the pain, we get a little bit of healing. So that's the overall good message about the Phoenix. You can rise again. Chester continues to rise, his spirit, his music, his talent. That's what I appreciate from this project. Is there anything, just now looking back on these two records under your belt, and this one is yet to come out and be released, but now that they're done, is there anything else you learned additionally, just taking away from this process, on the other side of it, having completed the records?
It gave us a deeper appreciation for our friend, just diving back into music we hadn't touched in so many years. And, lyrically, this has been insightful as to some of his emotional turmoil. I think that's pretty obvious once you start to analyze some of the lyrics. And Chester and I wrote a lot of the lyrics together. We were pretty much right around 50-50 of lyrical divide. And for me, when I'm reading it, I'm going, fuck, I didn't think he meant this at the time, but it's clear that there's some emotional pain that he was emoting through lyrics. And that's something I learned on this record. And it's also, I knew how popular he was in Lincoln Park, and we hung out all the time up until the time that he passed away. I don't think I ever really understood how deep of an emotional connection he had with his fans and his fans had with him. I knew he meant a lot to people and all that, but people that never knew him were seriously emotionally distraught when he passed, for years, by the way, not for a couple days. I mean, they really felt like they knew him on a very, very intimate level. And that's something that came through after his passing and working on the music. You just see so many people touched by him in such a positive way. I mean, he made a lot of people be okay or feel okay with not being okay. And I think that's a pretty special gift he had. And I'm not sure that I fully understood that when he was alive. Or maybe I just have a different appreciation or deeper appreciation for that now that he's gone.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for sharing that. Also, can't be easy for any of you to continue to work on this project. And, like I said, this is still at core, this is your friend, your dear friend that you've also lost, as much as, there's a thrill part of this thing, I'm sure, kind of like finding a present you didn't know you had. Like I said, this music is a gift to continue to get these songs and hear his voice again, but obviously also challenges personally to work through this stuff. And I appreciate that as well, just outside of the business aspect of this, just as a fan and and as a personal, we've all lost people. So this, like I said, just been a very tough time. Just as we wind this down, I want to give you back your day. I know how busy you are, and I appreciate you making time for us. Obviously with the rest of the record, yet to come, I'm sure there's going to be singles, another video or something, but like, what else is on tap? What's left for Gray Daze after this to continue to steward this music? I doubt I imagine this is the end of, whatever's left over, right? There's not anything else probably.
Well, you asked several questions there. So
I did, didn't I?
Let me run down the list. So next for us, we have a new single coming out on Friday called Starting to Fly. There'll be a video as well that hits. After that, we have another single, and then the album gets released. No, we actually do have more music. There's 18 more songs that we can choose to work on if we want to. I'm not sure how far we'll get along in that process, but we'll see how this record does. We definitely will be going into the studio this year and working on another 5-song acoustic EP. So that will be coming for sure. We've already started that process. So at minimum, you'll get at least another 5-song acoustic EP of the music.
Very cool. Very cool. A good song is a good song. Doesn't matter the format, doesn't matter. You could take a good hook or a good bones of a good song. It's like a soup stock. The good bones of a song can do anything.
You're absolutely right. As I was going to say, in his vocal performances, that's something I learned, is just at what a tremendous level he was at such a young age. You go back to these original tracks, you just hear how incredible of a singer he was. And I already knew that, but you just come to appreciate it all over again.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Thank you so much to you and the guys for making this record, and everybody involved. The Phoenix is coming out soon on Loma Vista Recordings, great label, known for Korn and Ghost, etc. And just Sean, thank you so much for sharing this stuff. Can't be easy, and we greatly appreciate you. Thank you for hanging out with Ghost Cult.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on.